And with that, we come to today's speaker. I've known Steve a long time, actually. Back when he was just, like running a creative studio. Just a normal person. And I love the fact that when we make a decision about a particular topic, person, or genre we want to go after, and we approach someone like Steve, the humility of his response of like, really? Me? Do you think? I mean, am I worthy of presenting at Creative Mornings? It's fascinating. And in those moments, I know that absolutely that is the person who should be on stage. That's the clear indication that, yes, absolutely, please come and share your story with us. If you don't think it's good enough, I love it. So you all have read his bio, I'm going to assume, because that's why you're here. So let's skip that. I'm going to share 3 bits of trivia about Steve's life. When he was 27, Steve hit rock bottom and decided to bike from Vancouver to Mexico on his, and this is for real, his old school high school mountain bike to Mexico. He hacked MySpace to connect with people along the way and couch surfed the entire journey. Sorry, couch surfed. Not the entire journey. Coaching. Right? Right? That'd be pretty good. He coaches all the way. Yeah. Coaches on couches. Oh, we should start a coaching business. Coaches on couches. Those are called counselors. Okay. Steve had a vision for the work he's doing now when he was 16 years old. And Steve loves the color seafoam. And later during Q&A, if he doesn't talk about it in his talk, somebody ask him about the colors he wears today. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Steve Real.
So I'm just bringing a few of the scents and natural materials in from my home on Bowen Island. So there's some cedar. Actually, there's some cedar from that big tree there, which we call Christmas. There's some lavender. There's a couple things that are not from our property, but that just smell pretty. Sometimes you just gotta have things that smell pretty. And the last thing I'm going to put on here is just a tiny bit of Nag Champa, which was the first scent that both my wife and I used in ceremony 18, 20 years ago, before we knew each other. We were both using it. We're old. When you say 20 years ago, things happened 20 years ago or 25 years ago, you know you've not escaped the aging process. So I'm just going to do a little bit of this because I was told not to. But I just want to bring a bit of scent into the space. This method of creating smoke and creating scent is something that my wife came up with, this device and the mechanism and all of that. She does it much better than me. I'm going to do it here. Normally this thing would be billowing smoke, but I'm being respectful, sort of, somewhat respectful. And then I thought what would be fun is that typically before I speak, I still get nervous. I've done a lot of speaking, but I still get nervous. And what I would typically do is I would go out, I'd be out in the hallway with headphones on, and I'd be dropping into my body. But I thought I'd just do it on stage because I'm going to be weird today. Is it okay if I get weird today a little bit? Is that cool? Okay, great. Well, let's get weird. So I'll probably be on the hallway listening to something like this. this is my music because of licensing issues, but I'd probably be listening to something similar to this. And I'd just be dropping into my body. Can you turn it up a bit, Dylan? Be creating space, taking up space. Opening up my body. Last thing you want when you're on stage is to be stuck in your head. But it's nice to dance first because then anything I do after this is so fucking easy. Right? Loosening the body up, dropping in. Taking all the jitters, all the energy, the natural adrenaline, which is a great thing. It keeps us awake, keeps us alert, keeps us alive. Not great when we're sweating profusely or freaking out when we're on stage. Nice to be a little bit calmer. So I'd be doing something like that. Put something else on. See if that works. I'd love to just invite you also to do a quick little ritual with me that we do before all of our Zoom calls, and you can do it right where you're sitting. And I'm just gonna ask everybody to drop in with me for a sec. Because of course everybody got up early and put themselves together. You all look great. And, oh hi, nice to see you. You know, just drank a bunch of caffeine maybe. A little nervous being in a crowd, who knows? But let's just all drop in together if you want. If you don't want to do this, that's cool. Everything is of your consent, so whatever feels good. But if you feel comfortable, I'll just invite you to plant your feet flat on the floor, if that's possible. And if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. If not, that's cool. Just you can look down or find a soft gaze somewhere. And I'm just going to invite you to put a hand on your chest, a hand on your belly. Let's just take a couple of deep breaths together. We're going to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. So let's breathe in. Let it go. Let it go. Big breaths in, breathing into your belly. Let it go. Last one, biggest breath of the morning. Just notice if you can feel a connection to the body, connection to the present moment. The sounds in the room. Just bring yourself all the way into the present moment. Letting go of anything you were worried about this morning, anything that's happening later today. Just presencing yourself right here, right now. I want you to just consider what it is that you are seeking this morning. Maybe you're seeking some inspiration, some motivation, new ideas. Just connect with the intention of what you are seeking this morning. want you to just consider for a moment what it is that you can offer this morning, what it is that you can offer this community. Perhaps that's a smile, be just energetic, which is the most powerful gifts of all. Perhaps you have wisdom that you can share. Perhaps it's just showing up. Maybe just showing up was enough for you today. Consider what you have to offer, you can bring this morning. Just connect into that. Now we're going to take one more breath, but we're going to let out a big sigh at the end if you feel like it, all right? Breathing in. Let it go. Thank you. Thank you. I'm interested if anybody just noticed a shift in the room, or if anybody would share a tiny bit of anything that they noticed inside them, or just anything you could just yell it out. Awareness, yeah. Yeah, a full room of people breathing together. Beautiful. One more? Is there one on this side? There's two on this side, so. Love? Beautiful. Peace. Nice. What's really interesting is that when we breathe together as a group, and actually if we breathe for a longer period of time, what starts to happen is our heart rate starts to syncopate. In fact, our energetic systems start to syncopate, and we kind of align our energies. So it's a really powerful practice as a group. So thanks for doing that with me. You didn't know you were going to get so weird this morning, but I really appreciate it. So today we're talking about ritual, which today for me is really all boils down to presence. It all boils down to how present can we be, how aware of the present moment, how in our body can we be, how can we mark moments, all of that sort of thing. And I think rituals can obviously be really big. And some of the work that we do, my work today here at Enfolds, which is at our home on Bowen Island, is about really big transformation and really big moments. But it's also about the tiny moments. It's about these beautiful tiny desserts that we serve on the first night with fresh raspberries from our garden. And so my work today is leading transformational work with psychedelics. I also do coaching. I generally am helping entrepreneurs in transitions in their life, in major transitions, often when they're exiting a business or transitioning from one career to another and realizing that they have to let go of the identity that they've built around themselves. And our work, like I said, is really, and the work we do with psychedelics is often the most poignant or the most intense moment of someone's life. So these are big, big moments. And it's pretty cool because today's work actually draws on everything I've ever done in my life. I basically put a guitar in my hand when I was 12 years old and didn't put it down until I was 27, when I bottomed out and biked to Mexico. So music is a big part of what we do. All the music you'll hear today is music we've created. We use music in our ceremonies. We use music for breath work. We use music at very key moments throughout our work. And a lot of what I learned through playing music, through creativity, I did a lot of improvisation. Improvisation is a massive part of our work. Because as much as we plan, you never know what's going to show up on the mat. You never know what's going to come out of someone. I spent almost 20 years as a designer, and I ran a couple of different agencies, and I did some terrible coding and various other things like that. But design is a huge factor in our work. And my wife is an interior designer, an industrial designer, and we're both experienced designers. And it's a huge, huge part of what happens when you come to see us, because naturally someone has some instinct that they want to come have a massive transformation, or they want to step into some really tricky areas of their psyche or of their being, or do some healing work. And there's some instinct that they want to do that, but there's another big part of them that is totally scared. And through design, through all the tiny interactions we have with people, through the way our website feels, all of those elements build trust. There's dozens of small rituals that happen around the big rituals that we host. I talk a little bit today about like the rituals we do with people and with our guests and with our clients, but also what we do behind the scenes. I'm also basically riffing this whole talk, so I don't really know what I'm going to talk about yet, but I have a few notes that I wrote on the ferry this morning. But I think so when I say all these mini rituals, like when people think about psychedelic work, they think about this super intense, multi-hour experience. And some of it is that, but some of it is also small rituals like this. On the first evening, we ask people, after they've done a breathwork, to consider what they might be hanging on to that's not going to serve them while they spend their time with us, when they're with us for the few days that they're there. So maybe there's fear, maybe there's doubt, maybe there's a work problem, maybe there's something going on at home, maybe one of their kids is struggling, and they want to just put that aside so that they can focus inward. So we ask them to write it down on a piece of paper. They don't have to share it. And then they take a moment and they light it on fire and they let it burn. And we invite them to really consider, as that's burning, just allow that to just sit there, to stay. And that plate with all the burnt papers stays there for the whole time. We just say, okay, these aren't necessarily going anywhere, but you don't need to hold them today. When people first arrive, we make them this beautiful little mint drink. And that's mint from our garden, and often berries from our garden. And it has a unique flavor, and it's a combination of things. And it's that tiny moment when they first arrive to say, oh, we've been thinking about you. We've been thinking about your arrival, and we want to welcome you here. And here's a tasty little thing to, bring your senses to life and help you feel present in the moment. So much of what we're doing with people is building safety, and in all of our work, and if we're doing anything for anyone else, it is a relational experience. We may be the best designer in the world or the best whatever in the world, but if we can't connect with someone, if we can't communicate our ideas, if we can't build trust, it's very hard to connect with people. How many people have cold plunged before? It's pretty big these days? Oh yeah, it's growing. It's interesting because the psychedelic we work with, it's the strongest psychedelic on the planet. It's called 5-MeO. It's legal in Canada, interestingly enough. But go Canada, that's pretty cool. But what's interesting is that the ceremony itself is this massive, it's super intense, and it's often very beautiful, and it's often totally terrifying. But the next day, my wife hosts this beautiful sauna ceremony. Her name is Austin, and she hosts this beautiful sauna ceremony where she takes people through a series of questions, contemplative questions, as the heat is rising in the sauna, and it gets really, really hot. And then she takes them outside, and we drop them into an ice bath. And often, actually, the ice bath is the moment where people have the biggest release, the biggest energetic release. Our neighbors know that on Friday mornings they can expect to hear a bit of shrieking. And that shriek is a great thing when we hear it, we're like, yes, something just happened. But then you also find these beautiful moments of Zen. This moment actually was captured, this woman talked about this in a film where this was a full non-dual experience, complete dissolution of self, dissolving into that moment. It's all these tiny moments, it's all these things, it's like all the details matter. And ultimately, all of this is about bringing someone into the present moment. And I think the present moment is so important because that's where all of the information is. All of our energy is. We spend, as humans, we have this incredible brain that spends so much time in the past, contemplating what we've done, what's gone on. He looks pretty relaxed too. So much that's gone on, and we think so much about the future. We're always planning, we're always setting goals, we're always working ahead of ourselves. But the truth is, in this moment, what I'm doing right now, this is all I've got. All I've got is how I show up for the next few minutes with you right now. And what I've learned to do and what I've learned to trust through ritual and through bringing more and more presence to my life is trusting in emergence. And I think ritual is also about emergence. And emergence is this idea, it comes from a few places, but one of the places it comes from is an indigenous concept that says, nature is so complex, this life is so complex, how could you ever imagine that you could plan for everything, that you could know exactly what's going to happen? I have no idea what the room is going to feel like when I show up here. So I jotted some notes, and I thought, you know what? I know what ritual is. I'm just going to wing it when I get here. I'm going to center myself. I'm going to do some ritual beforehand. I was rolling around like Andre 3000 with my flute a little bit before. Flute is actually a beautiful thing because it slows the breath down. But I was just making some sound. I was listening to some beautiful music on the way in. I was just continually presencing myself around these ideas. She's a wizard of ritual. She should be on stage, but she's at another event. Mark invited me in. I like attention. So I said yes. Actually, Austin really does not like being on stage, so I do most of the talking for us. But it's so much about just finding the present moment. When we find the present moment, we connect with all of the information that exists in the universe. We have all this internal wisdom that when we really channel, and that's the quote that's on your card, and I don't know when I said that or how I said that, but it's a cool quote. This idea that when creative ideas come to us, they're not coming to us because we're thinking really hard. Great ideas are coming to us because we've stopped thinking, because we've actually relaxed the mind and dropped into a flow state. How many people's best ideas come when we get the drink of water, when we go for a walk, when we're in the shower, right before we go to bed, in these moments of pause, in these moments of presence? So I think ritual can really help with that as well. So behind the scenes, I think ritual is even, maybe not more important, but it's just as important. So I think ritual helps us connect with ourselves. And the phrase I wrote down is, ritual is about becoming the process of your work, becoming the process of your creativity. Not feeling like you're doing the creativity or you're thinking through the creativity, you are becoming it. You're just allowing it to flow through you. And it takes practice, because when I started trying to trust emergence, it screws up sometimes. Sometimes it goes sideways. And sometimes you think you know what you're going to say and you have no idea what you're going to say. The more you do it, the more you trust, and actually the more you practice around the thing that you're doing, the more it becomes natural and very easy. So I think that we're a channel, we're a conduit for information. We're not thinking our ideas, we're just receiving them. And when we are fully open, relaxed, and present, we receive incredible wisdom, incredible information. We become the process of creativity. So a few things, I'll just give a few examples. One is that we spend a ton of time on Zoom these days. How many people spend a ton of time on Zoom? Yeah? Oh, actually, that's not so bad. I'm kind of impressed with the folks that don't. But, we spend a ton of time in digital interfacing with other humans, where the other human is physically somewhere else. That's why being in this kind of room is such a gift, to actually feel all of you and to be with all of you. But when I'm doing Zoom, a lot of my work on Zoom these days is actually, sometimes having some of the most profound or complex or complicated or challenging conversations with someone, talking about their life's history, talking about their deepest fears, talking about all sorts of things. But even back when I was in agency land, where we were talking about hard problems, but different problems, I would often, before a Zoom call, especially if it was important, I would take a moment to ground myself, so I would actually find my body, because I think a lot of times we lose our body. We actually lose track of the fact that we're a physical being in this moment. And I would ground myself. And then I would just imagine the other person, and if I'd met them, it's easier, and even if I hadn't, I'd usually look them up or I'd seen something, but let's say it's somebody that I've met before. I would consider, what do I know about this person? What's their shape? What do they look like? Where are they in the world? What do I know about what's going on in their life? How can I imagine being physically with that person? And I'll visualize myself walking into a room and seeing the person. Maybe it's an embrace or a handshake, or whatever the thing is. If it's a negotiation, it might just be a stern kind of that. No, I'm just kidding. But just taking that moment to visualize coming into the room with somebody and being physically with them, so that when I jump on the Zoom with them, I can connect with them more deeply. I can think, oh yeah, that's right, they were telling me about their daughter, and their daughter's trying to get into school right now, and this is happening, or there's what is the energy that they might be bringing into this conversation. And that's just incredibly powerful when you bring presence. Presence is the biggest gift you can give anyone. It's the biggest gift is when you can show up and you look at someone and they feel you seeing them when they are witnessed. Incredible things happen. I think it's also the greatest gift you can give your work. It's the greatest gift you can give your friends, your spouse, give yourself, is presence. So I think routines and rituals and taking these moments to presence ourselves helps us to do that. So there's lots of small things I do as well. Like I think practices around the beginning of your workday. Well, first of all, when I wake up in the morning, I read my values to myself every morning. So I'm reminding myself, how do I want to show up today? What is today about for me? Every day is a ritual. This is a ritual today. How do I want today to show up? How do I want to show up today? Often when I'll start work, I'll take a moment to just, again, ground myself, like 2 breaths. It doesn't need to be long. I'll take a couple of deep breaths. And before I start a piece of work, I'll just consider, why am I doing this piece of work? What is this about? Because sometimes you're doing bullshit work. You're on a spreadsheet for 2 hours, or you're crunching away at something that isn't necessarily your life's work, but it serves a purpose. So how can you connect it to purpose? How can you say, okay, I'm going to work on this spreadsheet for the next couple of hours because this is going to help me visualize the finances of my business, or this is going to help me organize the timeline for this project, which is important because blank. And just that act helps us drop in, helps us presence ourselves, helps us focus in a way that we might not otherwise be able to do. How am I doing for time? That means, got it, beauty. I think the other thing is that when we work from home, or when we're self-employed, or some variation of that, I think a lot of times we have a tremendous amount of flexibility these days in how we work. I think it's super important to think about how you close your work for the day and take a moment to make a ritual of closing my work today. One of the ways I'll do that is I'll look back at my calendar, or I'll look back at my to-dos, and I'll say, this is what I did today. And this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. And this is the end of my workday. I'll literally physically say, I am complete for the day. I can close this is the end of this chapter of my day. So that when I leave my little office and I go back into my house and I'm going to have dinner with my wife, I'm actually there. I'm not still in my computer land, Because as much as I spend a lot of time with humans doing beautiful ritual, I also spend a lot of time on my computer. So I think rituals can happen big and small, and I think the last thing I'll say is just that ritual is often something that comes from tradition. If it's a bigger ritual, it might come from spiritual traditions, it might come from religious, it might come from cultural stuff, right? You might be drawing from very old practices, and that can be a beautiful thing. But rituals can also be a creative pursuit. Rituals can be completely unique to you. They don't need to come from anywhere. They can come from something that you discover and you design for yourself. Mark gave me that idea. Oh, a couple days ago. So thank you. Attention is our greatest resource. What we pay attention to determines the quality of our life. Does everybody get that? Attention is non-renewable. The attention we spend in this moment, that's why I'm very, very grateful that you would sit here and spend some time with me. Attention is our greatest resource. So the question I always ask people is, what are you going to pay attention to? Every day is a ritual. What is your ritual about today? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Lots of you have been here before. What do we do now? Get up and dance.
I'll do that.
No, we're going to serve human urine to everybody. Mine. I've been saving it up for you, fermenting it. No, we're going to pay attention. We want you to spin. We have always prioritized the venues. Well, we've been in this venue for a decade, so we love this venue for a lot of reasons, and we're very grateful. Where's Janet? Did she leave? Janet and Daryl and the team, and it's so grateful to be here.
Oh, real quick, is Shannon here? Who drew the Steve on the postcard?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank Shannon.
Yeah, we're going to thank Shannon as well. Steve's going to stay. Steve, right now, will join you. Join a group up here if that works. But we're going to spend a few moments in conversation with ourselves. I mean, you make your own group, self-organized. 6 people's perfect. 8's fine too. And just have a brief conversation about what you just heard, or perhaps something you were thinking you might hear and didn't show up for you, or an opinion that has popped up that you want to ask others about. And when we come back in a few minutes to have a conversation with Steve, it will be better informed by the group dynamic conversation you just had, okay? So we're going to have a conversation with him. There are door prizes. Don't leave. Steve has more to share. We have to figure out why he's barefoot and where. Thank you, as Steve said. Come on, join me, Steve. Thank you very much to Samantha for this beautiful artwork. Every month, we partner with one of the students at the IDEA program at Capilano University, and we give them some sample photos and some sample texts, and we challenge them to do a portrait that reflects today the theme and the speaker and everything, and not bad. I like it.
Cool.
Pretty cool. And you get to take them home, and what I encourage you to do is literally write mail to somebody. Put a stamp on it and send them mail. Tell somebody you love them. We are volunteer run. Applause for the volunteers. There we go. Who has a question? Okay, I'm going to start with questions.
Check.
Stephen.
Steven, what did I do wrong?
In your work and your storied career in life, have you encountered ritual that has been harmful, that needs to end? Ritual that people, habitualize and really need to get rid of in their lives? Can you think of an example?
Honestly, the thing that comes to mind immediately is how much negative self-talk people ritualize in their lives. How often, when people come to see us and the work they do with us, it's almost never an external problem. It's almost always an orientation problem of how you see yourself and how you see the world, and your belief system and your structure. We ritualize our beliefs every day through the words, through the thoughts, through our words, through our actions. That's the first thing that comes to mind on that.
Yeah, it's a good one, and I agree. Back here.
Ritual is beautiful, and it's beautiful by design. It's not an accident. That's probably why this is a good audience for you to discuss ritual. And ritual is inspirational, as you've told us, but a less value-laden way of describing inspiration would be influence. Ritual influences. That may be another reason why it might be a good topic here, because a lot of folks are in advertising. Ritual, because of its beauty, is seductive. It seduces us into a point of view, into a set of behaviors. And for that reason, I've always found ritual to be something to be aware of and skeptical about, and something to avoid participating in, because it's the mere beauty of it. It's the good feeling, it's the seduction that always carries a message. Ritual is like advertising. Disabuse me of that view, challenge that view.
I mean, you're right. And so, I mean, there's lots of ritual that is a seduction. To me, at the very start, when I talked about ritual being about presence, if there isn't presence there, if you're being swept away into something that doesn't align with your values or what you truly know to be true in your heart and your body, then it's probably not a healthy ritual. And I think a lot of times people grow up in religious ritual that doesn't serve them. Maybe it does too. I think there's nothing inherently wrong with religion. But to me, it's about presence. And to me, it's like, I think if you can, it's interesting because I've spent a lot of my life feeling like I was an outsider or separate from people. And I would often curve, like I would zag when people would zig or whatever the expression is. And I would intentionally do the other thing or the opposite thing or something else. And in a lot of my healing work has come from recognizing that I'm actually one with everyone, and that bringing people together and sometimes doing things that feel silly, or somebody wants to lead a practice with me and I don't necessarily connect with it, but it means a lot to them. How can I just connect with them and work with them because that's the energy that they're bringing to me? But I think there's a fine line there where something can be, like you say, if you're being, there's a big difference between ritual and manipulation. Let's leave it there. Thank you. That's interesting. I like the gotcha question.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for the inspiring talk. I have a question for you, which is more so about that story of you leaving Canada and going to Mexico by bike. Could you please expand on that and share what was your experience like? Where were you at when you decided to do it?
Sure.
I'd love to hear more. Thank you.
Sure. So I was, I think I was 26 or 27, right around there. I had been in a tremendous amount of debt for quite a long time. I had been doing something I shouldn't have been doing. I took a giant loan. That whole thing fell apart. A lot of that debt was on credit cards. I was underwater, and I hadn't told anybody in my whole life about it. So I was working my ass off. I was working so hard and constantly just paying interest payments. And so I felt like I was drowning financially. I was drowning financially. I had been in a relationship for a few years that was just really complicated, with a really special soul, like somebody who really played a huge role in who I am today. And it was a very complicated relationship, and we had been on and off and on and off, and finally we were off. And through that relationship, I had been driven away from my community and my friends, and I felt very alone, and ended up back in my parents' basement for the first time since I was 17 or 18. I moved out right away, right after high school. And I had no money, and I really didn't know what to do. And I was reading On the Road by Jack Kerouac for the second or third time. Great book. It's an old book, but it's a great fucking book. Excuse me, I shouldn't be swearing so much. But I was reading Jack Kerouac, and I just thought, oh, I need to go somewhere, but I had no money. And then I don't know, it just came to me. I thought, I'm gonna bike. I could bike somewhere that's free, and I had a mountain bike, and I just picked Mexico. Actually, originally I picked LA, and then I decided to pick Mexico. And 2 weeks later, I left, and it was a pretty wild trip. About 3 days before I left, I realized that you could. And MySpace was the big social network at the time, and you could kind of hack it. You could there's all these little apps and stuff, and you could tweak things. And I found a way to message people based on zip code through MySpace. And so I messaged people, and I figured all the zip codes of all the little towns I would be in roughly, and I messaged people. I ran a program overnight to message 50 people in each zip code, and say, hey, I'm Steve. I put a video on YouTube. YouTube was about a year old. This was 2007. 2006, 2007. It was right after YouTube had come out. So I put a video on YouTube of me saying, hey, I'm going on this journey. I need places to stay. Here's who I am. And I'll say this. I sent that out and I went to bed. And leading up to that moment, this trip really honestly felt like I don't know if I'm coming back. That's how I felt. I felt I was in a really tough place. And this felt like I just need to go, but I don't know where I'm going. And I woke up in the morning and there were 500 emails in my inbox from people all the way down the coast saying, come stay with me. And here's my phone number and here's my address and I'll leave a key under the door and I'm going to be at work that day, but just, whatever. And it was like the universe just was like, hey, we see you and we got you. And it was a totally outstanding experience. And I did a lot of meditation and I read Pema Chodron, When Things Fall Apart. It's one of the best books in the world. Pema Chodron, When Things Fall Apart on that trip, and that changed my life. And meeting new souls in each part of the journey was really incredible. I did a bunch of videos along that trip that are somewhere still on the internet and in a YouTube account I don't have access to anymore. They're pretty embarrassing, but I was like trying to vlog the whole thing. And back then to vlog, I had a camcorder and a laptop in one of my pannier bags. My bike weighed 80 pounds. Anyway, there's a bunch of videos of me with shaggy hair, talking about funny things, if you ever want to go dig for them. I shouldn't have said that out loud. Forget that last part.
Yeah, if you go through loss and pain and grief, as we all will. Chapter 4 of When Things Fall Apart on hopelessness is all you need to read. Especially if you have religion in your background, in your life that you need to maybe shake loose. Okay, one more question. Over here. Okay, there it is. I saw that.
Two more.
Yeah, hi Steve.
Hi.
How do you sustain a ritual when the novelty of it fades away? Like, I know we all want to start rituals and we have, and I myself have started hundreds of them, but once the novelty of it fades away, I feel like it's more of a chore than a ritual. Like, how do you keep it relevant to you?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm not a super, let me rewind that. I guess what I would say is that ritual, in fact, is part of creating, in some ways it's marrying habit and presence. So one of the gifts of ritual is that our brain loves patterns and it loves habits. So if we have a ritual that signals to us that it's time to go to bed, we're going to fall asleep much faster. So let's say every night we make a cup of tea, something simple, right? When that becomes habit, our brain goes, oh, it's tea time, that must mean it's sleep time. So it's a really powerful thing to form habit around this. But it's also about continually presencing and continually bringing presence. And so I find that I generally have certain rituals. Like there's certain rituals that feel very evergreen, that they're probably going to last forever, and there's some that come and go seasonally. Like I really believe in living very seasonally. So there are times when I'm really amazing at my morning ritual, and I'm, banging it out, like doing all these beautiful little things. There's times, there's seasons when I wake up and my ritual is to drink water, go outside for 2 minutes, and then start work because I'm so passionate about what's happening. So I think to also be flexible and to realize that we have seasons as humans as well. We are natural. We are not outside of nature. That can help us so we don't have to feel like it's a chore or something we have to do. I don't know if that exactly answers the thought.
Thank you.
Oh, I was just going to ask about seafoam.
Seafoam, this color, here. Does everybody know?
When I first met you, 700 years ago, you and I both dressed like frickin' architects,
Yeah.
right? Black shirts and
My closet was every
Yeah.
single article of clothing.
why?
Was
What
black.
the hell? Why seafoam? Why are you always glowing like this now?
So I'll tell you, I used to wear all black all day every time. And the reason for that actually is, I wore some black. Everybody wears some black. But when I was young, early in my career, I went and got to sit in on this big presentation from the firm Snøhetta. Snøhetta is like this incredible design and architecture firm based in Europe. I think I forget, Copenhagen, Netherlands, somewhere. Anyway, look them up. Their work is phenomenal. But I got to sit on this presentation, and 20 of them were there. 20 of them had flown from Europe to New York to do this presentation, and all of them were jet black. They were all wearing black on black on black on black on black. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. That's what I want to look like. So that's what I did for a good decade. It also, I like fashion, but I don't care that much about fashion. So when you pick one color, it works really well. It's very easy to coordinate. But what happened actually is through a bunch of work that I've been doing around my own healing and opening my heart and feeling more present and connected to myself, I had an experience, this was 3 years ago in November, and I had the most heart-opening experience of my entire life. And it was this ceremony that was just tremendous. And I woke up the next day, and I was wearing a black shirt, and I looked down at the shirt, and it was absorbing so much light that it just didn't feel right. And I just said, oh, I want to wear bright color. I want to reflect light, and I want to refract light out. And then I bought a tremendous amount of white and beige clothing. It also matches, as a designer, it also matches the Enfold brand to a T, so it all works out very well. It all works out very well.
So I want to give you this thank you
you.
card on behalf of all of us.
And I just want to say thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you all for paying attention to whatever I was talking about. I'd love to chat with anybody who wants to hang out, but I love that this event happens. So thanks for everybody who puts effort into this. Thanks for the staff here, Daryl for setting us up, and everybody else. Just appreciate being here. So thanks.
It's really a pleasure. It's
Yeah.
a community thing.
Thank
And
you.
speaking of which, one of our community members and volunteers is Dave. Dave left, he's gone. David Ives runs Made to Fly Design, and he takes local reclaimed wood every month and converts it into beautiful artwork based on the theme, and then we give that as a gift
Beautiful.
to our speakers. So that's from
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Steve Rio.
Thank you.